Yo, what up, Night Nation? Want to do a video to address all the news that's happened over the past couple days. Obviously, the big news is pretty much as soon as the Knights 2024 season concluded, it was announced that Gus Malzahn would be stepping down slash resigning, and also announced that he would be taking the OC position over at Florida State. Obviously, this was a move that was speculated for quite some time that basically Malzahn would be leaving UCF at the conclusion of the season. It wasn't quite clear on how it would happen, when it would happen, in what fashion. The big sticking point had been the buyout. Malzahn, if he were to be fired without cause, would have been owed $12 million, which was something that UCF financially just did not have the resources for. So there was talks of maybe a negotiated buyout, meeting somewhere in the middle, or straight up stepping down. Really what happened was the best possible scenario happened. We didn't have to pay Malzahn a single dime. He basically was able to step down and go to Florida State. And in theory, if a coach gets plucked to another school, Florida State would actually owe us money, or any school for that matter. But obviously, it was negotiated that, Malzahn would step down, forgo his buyout, go to Florida State, and we would waive the buyout that they would owe us. That was absolutely by far, hands down, the best scenario that could have happened. The fact that we owe no money to Malzahn, despite him having, quite a few years left on his contract and owed a lot of money. To get out of this was just the dream scenario. It was something that worked out for both sides. If you go look at a Gus Malzahn press conference from year one, even year two, even year three for that matter, compared to now, you could just tell he looks worn out. He looks tired. I don't think he wanted to be here anymore. And obviously the fan base, the donors, leadership did not want him at UCF anymore. To look back at his era, it just flat out did not work out, and that's okay. I think he came here with a vision, and he came here with the thought that he could turn UCF into a perennial contender. When we moved into the Big 12, a perennial Big 12 contender, someone that was going to be top 25 nationally every year. And like he said, he was going to recruit with his hair on fire and build a national profile for UCF and really build this thing the right way. And that was his intention. I don't believe for 1 second it wasn't. It just didn't work out. Why? Could point to a lot of reasons. Maybe the game has passed him by. The massive change that college football has undergone in the past few years when you talk about the NIL and the transfer portal and all the different things. For a guy that's nearly 60, that's used to one way, it just no longer was tenable and was no longer going to work out for him. This is a guy that wants to have control over the plays, and really kind of be that offensive coordinator. But the college football head coaching job is so much more than that now. You're raising money with donors. You are getting NIL money. You're re-recruiting your own players. You're recruiting high school players. You're recruiting transfer players. There's just a lot of responsibility now, and I think it takes a younger, up-and-coming, hungry guy to really do that. And just a lot of Malzahn, on the field, play calling, and just how he managed the game and team was outdated, I presume. Definitely the play calling and how he managed talent. There were just a lot of mistakes made in the Malzahn era, from mismanaging quarterbacks to mismanaging talent to all of the recruits that he got, these high-level, high four-star recruits, just not really seeing the field, him having kind of blind loyalty to certain transfers that didn't pan out. Really the highlight of Malzahn's career at UCF was that first year beating UF in the bowl game. After that, it really went downhill. He's the first coach in UCF history to have 4 consecutive seasons where he lost more games than the prior season. He went from 9-4 in year 1 to 9-5 to 6-7, and this year it all hit ahead with a 4-8 year. The first time that UCF has missed a bowl game since 2015, when they were winless, an 8-year streak that was broken. And a lot of things like that happened under Malzahn, from just not winning, going 1-2 in bowls, to having our home field advantage really kind of be stripped away. I mean, we've lost a lot of home games over the last couple of years, to missing the bowl, just to seeing an unprecedented amount of people kind of transfer out and not be happy here. blowing multiple opportunities over the years. I went over this in the previous video I did after we lost to Colorado, but blowing that golden opportunity to look great on a national stage when Fox and Big Noon Kickoff was in town when we got blown out by Colorado in embarrassing fashion at home, to the loss to Navy that cost us hosting the conference championship in 2022, to losing the conference championship, which lost us the auto bid to the Cotton Bowl. Just multiple moments like this that under Malzahn, have been blown and missed opportunities. And really hit ahead this year. This year was something that was billed as a potential conference championship potential team, at the very least, a team that was going to be in the mix in mid-November, early November. Even if they weren't going to be a team that made it, they were going to be in the mix. Never in my wildest dreams did I think UCF would regress from last year by 2 games. Never in my wildest dreams did I think we were going to take a 2-game step back and miss a bowl game. I thought absolute worst case scenario would be 6-6 again. I thought that was the absolute worst case scenario, especially when we talk about starting out 3-0 on the season. I thought it was very feasible that we'd go 3-6 the rest of the way, maybe win a bowl game. I thought there was no chance in hell that we were going to miss a bowl game. I thought at the very least we were going to win at least one more game and show improvement. When you talked about all the transfers we got and the staff changes and all the changes and all the hype and all the excitement prior to the season, and just never materialized. And it really started after that first loss to Colorado. You could see inklings of it in the TCU win, where things were looking a little sketchy and we had kind of a miraculous comeback. And then Colorado, I think I did, and most of us saw the writing on the wall that, oh, we're 3-1. No, I knew it was going to happen. You could tell the collapse was coming. And that's when you realize you lost faith in Malzahn. When we're 3-1 and it's one loss, in other seasons, I'd be like, all right, it's one loss, we can bounce back. I didn't really have a lot of faith that we were going to bounce back after that. I didn't think it was going to be 4-8 bad, but I thought the conference championship hopes are out the window at this point. We're hoping for a 7-win season. I did not think it would be this bad, but the fan base, the donors, the high-level people all lost faith in Malzahn. I mean, you talk about he got booed at Spirit Splash with people saying fire Malzahn. There was multiple chants of fire Malzahn after home losses. It got so bad just on Twitter, on social media, and then at the games that it was no longer a tenable situation for anyone. There was no excitement for him to continue as our head coach. And there was nothing that he could do to convince any of us that he was going to turn it around. When you talk about the talent that we're going to lose after the season, even if you had kept every single underclassman and person that still has eligibility remaining, if you were to somehow miraculously in this day and age of the portal to keep everyone, you talk about you're losing Kobe Hudson and RJ Harvey and all of these key players on both sides of the ball. It was a very senior-laden team. For him, basically would have to do a full rebuild when he had already supposedly loaded up this year and he couldn't do it. For us to think he could, rebuild and get into contention, it wasn't going to happen. So this was just the best case scenario for all sides. Malzahn finishes 28-24 in his time here, barely over 500, and it had been going downhill really since year one. It's unfortunate because I wanted to work out. He wanted to work out. Most people liked Malzahn the man. He seemed like a good guy, a genuine coach, a guy that really cared about this job and felt like he looked refreshed after he got let go from Auburn, came here, felt like, okay, I'm not in the SEC anymore. I'm not around these crazy Auburn people or whatever. I can come here and make a difference. And he looked excited, enthusiastic, but it just never materialized straight up. It just did not work out. And there's a lot of reasons, but it doesn't really matter the reasons. At the end of the day, it just didn't work out, and every side needed a change. So now we're in the midst of a coaching search. And what is that going to look like? I think there should be 3 criteria for this upcoming coach. And I think this is arguably the most important UCF football hire in school history. We're going to be entering year 3 in the Big 12. This is when a team that's kind of in the phase where you can't really consider them a transitioning team anymore, right? I mean, at this point, you've had 2 recruiting classes while in the Big 12. You're not someone that's been there a long time, but you've been in for 2 years. You're entering year three. Maybe, you're not going to come in and be world beaters in year three. But in year three, you should be starting to show signs of, okay, we have a couple of recruiting classes under our belt. On top of that, the Big 12 money is starting to come in. This is where things should start to at least get to the point where we're showing signs of progress. And you saw that with a lot of teams this year, the newer teams. You saw that with Cincinnati. You obviously saw that with BYU. You look at SMU year one in the ACC, they go undefeated in conference play. So this isn't something that's impossible to do, especially in year three. So I feel this coaching hire is of the utmost importance. It's going to be one of the most important hires that we will make. So my three criteria for this hire would be, one, he has to be young. I think this is a young man's job right now, because the energy you need to deal with donors and transfers and high school players and re-recruiting your own team and the money and dealing with agents and donations and all the NIL stuff, you got to have energy for it. College football coaching is a year-round nonstop job, and I just don't think it's for the faint of heart and someone that's entering in their 60s. I'm not saying they can't be successful in their 60s. I'm just saying right now, with the position that UCF is in as a young and up-and-coming school, I think we need a young coach, and we saw what happened when we had young coaches like Frost and Heupel. We had a lot of success. So let's get them young. I don't know the exact age, 35 to 48, something like that. Two, they have to be offensive minded. One of the big things we lost under Malzahn was a brand identity, unless you want to call running the ball a lot a brand identity. But under Frost and Heupel, we were a fast-paced, high-flying offensive team that was exciting, put up points, could do it in the air, could do it on the ground. We had a lot of athletes. I think it fits the mold of being a Florida-based team, and it's what the fans like. It's exciting, and you quite honestly don't need an elite defense when you have that good of an offense. You can win a lot of ball games that way. It suited us the best. It marked the most successful period in UCF history. So yeah, I want them to be offensive minded, whether that means they are a current OC, they are a former OC, or whatever it is. Their offensive philosophy is modern, and it's what they care about most. Three, I feel this is probably the least important, but I do still feel like it's important. I think they need some Power 4 experience. Doesn't mean they need to be in the Power 4 right now, but it means they were maybe an assistant coach in the Power 4 at some point. So if they're a head coach now to G5, that's fine. If they maybe had some Power 4 experience in the past as an OC, as a DC, as a QB coach, whatever the case may be, I think that's important, because I do think it's a different ball game than the group of five. You have to think differently. You have to think bigger. The recruiting is different. The money is different. I don't think it's an end-all be-all. I don't think it means, if they don't have it, you can't hire them. But I just think that's an important factor that I would consider. As far as the coaches, since my most recent post, some things have changed. I do not believe that we're going to go internal. I do not believe that Tim Harris is going to be a top candidate. I do not think Scott Frost is going to be a top candidate. People have asked me why. Just use your head, man. He hasn't coached since 2022. NIL and the portal didn't exist the last time he coached. He's had one winning season in 6 years as a head coach. I just think he's too far out of the game to really have. I think he caught lightning in a bottle here, and I don't know if he could catch it again. I would consider some other coordinators I didn't say previously in my post. Oregon's offensive coordinator would be one. Also, there's been a lot of talk of Jamie Chadwell, who's Liberty's current head coach. He's 21-4 over the past 2 seasons, so I think I would like to add him to that list. There was a lot of talk about G.J. Kinney. Right now, I think it's fair to say nobody knows who it's going to be. There's been all these rumors that have floated around, whether people have gotten it from rivals or they've gotten it from Twitter or DMs or whatever. They're tracking flights of places from Orlando to wherever a current coach resides. I think that this is not something UCF is going to rush, even though time is of the essence. National Signing Day, early signing day, is Wednesday. UCF still has 10 people left in this recruiting class that they need to retain. They also want to probably retain some of their current players. So time is the essence, but it can't take precedent over rushing this hire. It's too important. If it means you lose current players, it means you lose current recruits, so be it. Next year's not going to be a great year anyways, so you accept it to get the right guy at the helm of this program. Now, you know, there's been rumors, a lot of people were talking like it was GJ Kenny a day ago. Now today, a lot of people are talking like it's Jamie Chadwell, and I'm not confirming, denying, or any of those rumors. That's just, if you just go on the internet, you'll see stuff like that. Doesn't mean they're not candidates or even top candidates. They probably are, but I don't think until we get an actual confirmation, I think a lot of the stuff is BS. I'm sure some people are plugged in and hear stuff, but I know that AD Terry Mohajir is going to keep this close to vest, and he is not going to reveal anything. There may be some leaks on the coaching side or agent side, but it's going to be very hard for us to know who it is until we all know who it is. So I wouldn't trust too many sources with this stuff, because it's, conducting interviews and things like that take time. From what I've heard, UCF is not using an agency for like a talent agency to do this search. So they're kind of doing it manually themselves. I mean, Mohajir, like I said, is going to keep this close to us. I mean, he didn't even put his name behind the statement when Gus Malzahn left. There's been very little from UCF's athletic department about that in general. So they're not even going to wish or put their name behind, wishing Coach Malzahn farewell and really have any sort of public thing on social media. They're not going to release any sort of inkling about who the next coach is. So we're going to have to just wait and see. I do believe it will happen within the next 7 days. Yes, ideally you'd want it before National Signing Day. At this point, I'm just assuming that the assistant coaches that are left on the team, those who have not maybe secretly accepted new jobs, are just trying to keep the kids together, or the recruiting class together, because maybe they'll get offered a position on the new staff. I'd also assume a lot of these guys are scrambling for jobs at the same time, because if you look at historically, most coaching staffs, when a new coaching staff comes in, very, very few are retained. There's a couple of examples of guys getting retained. I know Becton was retained by Frost. I know Grant Herder was retained by, I think, Heupel, or maybe it was Malzahn. It's maybe one, maybe two at max that get retained. So a lot of these guys are going to be fired and looking for new jobs, and they're probably already putting out feelers. So they're maybe spending a little bit of time trying to, keep this class together. But either way, I still don't think you can rush this type of hire. So we'll find out stuff in the coming days. You'll hear rumors and stuff, but I would envision it's going to take at least a few more days, unless UCF really wants to get it done before signing day. But I have a hard time believing it'll happen in the next 24 hours, but we'll see. I could be wrong there. And then as it pertains to all of the transfer news today, you saw a long list of guys that announced they're transferring. Cam Moore, the Henderson brothers, twins, I should say, a couple, Caden Kittler, Marcellus Marshall, Matthew Alexander. So a pretty long list of guys that, were key players or got rotation minutes. Obviously, Kittler and Marshall were starting pieces on the O-line. Damari never ended up playing this year, but he was a key player last year. So there was definitely some big names on there. Big one, obviously, was the freshman DB, which was, also a big loss. He looked really good on the field. So this is something that probably would have maybe even happened anyway, just even if Malzahn stayed, just because historically you look under Malzahn, he's lost a lot of his own guys each year. Not so much last year. They did a great job retaining a lot of the key guys, but just in general, this could have happened because this is college football now. This is the transfer portal era now. So I would have not been surprised even if we had gone, I don't know, call it 8-4, 7-6, that a lot of the young guys would transfer because they weren't getting playing time, and that's just the world we live in now. But when you do have a coaching change, this is extremely common. So I would not put any thought into this of like, we're falling apart, whatever. No, this always happens during a coaching change. So much, in fact, that the NCAA opens up a 30-day transfer window when there's a coaching change. So they actually get their own 30-day window compared to teams that don't have a coaching change. So this is not surprising. Also, they can come back. So if a new coach comes in, and they haven't committed anywhere and haven't enrolled in classes, which is not something that happens overnight, they could come back. So it's possible to re-recruit some of these guys. I did notice though there was some interesting ones that have not announced anything yet. Now it's still early; it's in the first day or two. But John Walker is a name that has not announced yet. Christian Peterson is a name that has not announced yet. Stacey Gage, Miles Montgomery, Dylan Risk, obviously are all names that, as of now, are still in a UCF uniform. We'll see what happens, but don't worry too much about that. It's going to happen when you have a coaching change like this. So as of now, I think this was the absolute best case scenario. This gives me hope again for the future. This makes me excited again about UCF football. It gives us potentially a vision here and a path forward if we make the right hire. He's a young, exciting guy, exciting coach that wants to be here and really build and has and has the just the energy and the wherewithal to do it. I think this was the best case thing that could have happened, and it really does give me hope for not only the future but just the program as a whole. I was really worried about the state of the program after this year, especially with Malzahn still there. I thought we were going nowhere and we were on a quick path to becoming a middling or worse Power 5 team, a team that you don't want to be, like a Rutgers or a Vanderbilt or whatever. But this gives me hope that we're going to steer right back in the right direction, get back on the right path, and have some excitement for the future. And I think that's hopefully where we're heading. So these next 3 to 7 days are going to be absolutely crucial for the future of UCF, but there's hope and excitement again. So let's see what happens. Go Knights, charge on.